Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with John Grutzner, who is President North America for Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold. And we're going to talk to John about both of those companies, and of course, the subject du jour, or du month, or du year. I don't know what this is. It's the coronavirus crisis. How his companies are handling this, what he sees, and actually, his parent company, the Travel Corporation, just made some major news this past week of what it was going to do. And we're going to talk to him about that as well. So you can find out all about that and more on Insider Travel Report. Now, John, first of all, how are you and where are you? You got a nice poster in the background. I like that. That's good.
My Insight poster. My team was making fun of my Yoda there, but I'm talking to you from my home in Fairfield, Connecticut, and I'm doing great. I very much appreciate. Best to be expected, I guess, during this time. I'm here with my wife and my daughter. So my daughter's adjusting to that whole virtual school thing.
Oh my God! And is she in high school or is she?
Yep, she's 15. She's very much. She's actually. She tends not to be extroverted, so she's very much into like painting and photography and drawing. So she's actually really done well. She's flourished in this environment. She's had an active Instagram account with her photography, and one of her paintings won an award. So
there you go.
She's actually really liking it.
This crisis is almost perfect for her. She likes that kind of stuff. For all of us who are on the road all the time, we want to travel, even though sometimes we moan about it. We're all missing travel, right?
I never thought, James, you and I have been on the circuit for a number of years. I never thought that I would miss the travel component of this job, but it's been kind of like Groundhog Day here for about the last 3 months. And so I'm ready, as I'm sure a lot of our travelers and our travel advisors, is to start to kind of get back in and focus in on re-entry, because I'm itching for adventure.
Well, it's all of our friends are on the road too. We see each other all the time. It's like, we're this is our social life too, So it is a challenge for us. Let's talk a little bit about beyond personal, how this has affected us personally. How has this crisis affected your operations at your two brands, Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold, here in the U.S. and both abroad?
Okay, well, maybe I'll kind of start with abroad. One of the things that we have as part of the Tolman family and part of the travel company family is we have the advantage of Stanley Tolman, who really has a breadth of knowledge, and almost we're celebrating 100 years, so a century of background on what's going on. He started out the conversation saying this is first and foremost a crisis about people. And so one of the things I have to keep on reminding myself day in and day out is this is about people, whether that's our guests, whether that's our travel advisors, or whether it's that staff. So the way that it's impacted us is kind of three levels. We kind of had that, first of all, the containment phase, the current phase, where we safely returned our guests that were in destination back to their homes. And then we had to make the really tough decision about suspending trips, coming up with how we were handling that. We're currently suspending our trips through the end of August. And then it has allowed us time to kind of look at our protocols and what we're doing and what the new world is going to look like. So the first thing was kind of the containment phase. And now we're starting to look at reentry. We're talking to our trade partners. We're conducting consumer confidence surveys. And we're looking at different options once the market opens up. And then the future, and we'll be talking a little bit more about this over the next few days, is, we're hoping, as we look at stuff, we have hope. As you and I have talked on a personal level, there's a lot of information out there, and we're just, we're trying to come up with smart decisions on what we do moving forward. We believe moving forward, there's going to be greater emphasis on domestic. We believe that hosted groups, where guests are going to feel more comfortable with a trade partner going into a destination. And then also, we're bullish on what's going to happen in the guided space. Melissa Del Silva with Trafalgar and myself have had a number of conversations on, we believe that those guests are going to perceive or be more comfortable being on a smaller group and being on places that have been carefully vetted. They're probably seeing, unfortunately, what's happening with our friends in the deep water space. And I think from the U.S. consumer standpoint, they're going to reassess how they want to experience a destination, and we believe that bodes well for the guiding program.
No, and true, and actually, your parent company just yesterday. We're talking to you on Wednesday. Announced a whole new set of guidelines and protocols for all guided vacation operators, including your two brands. Can you talk a little bit about those new protocols and how they're going to work to improve health and safety of your tours, and what do they entail?
Sure, absolutely. We're lucky. Brett Tolman is definitely a leader in the space. As we work with the industry-wide protocols that are going to come into effect, my CEO Ula has been involved in crafting these, not just for us, but for the entire industry. So we've taken a leadership role in that. A few of the things as we look at the new world is we're trying to create protocols based on well-being, and we want those guests to feel comfortable. And so for us, there's about 5 things that we're really doing. One is we're working, first of all, with our expertly trained travel directors. So we know it's one thing to come up with policies, but we have incredibly well-trained travel directors who help implement those once they get in destination. So it starts with our travel directors. Then the other thing we've done is we created a full-time 24/7 support team, basically with operations and guest support. So the guests are going to have a heightened level of security or a heightened level of an ability to adapt in those destinations in case something arises. And then a lot of the things that both the travel directors as well as the rest of our operations staff is really stringent on the road protocols. So that relates to guest sanitation, working with the World Health Organizations on a case-by-case basis. But, the way that we clean our coaches, the way that we provide support, and we provide things like hand sanitizers and those type of things for
and masks too, right?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you talked about masks. You and I are both in the New York area, and you can't go into a grocery store without a mask now. They won't let you in. I went to Home Depot trying to get some things for some yard projects that my wife was doing, and they take a temperature read of your forehead. You text. They have an app that you can go in. We'll really have to look to see if that's just face masks, if those are gloves, or what type of things that we need to be doing on a country by country basis. But really stringent on the road protocols that we're trying to implement, or that we will be implementing. The other component is physical distancing. And one of the reasons why we believe that former FIT guests will be looking at the advantage of a well-vetted and crafted guided program and said, we are going to go and we're going to vet, we're going to look at the restaurants, we're going to look at the hotels and the attractions and see how we want to do physical distancing. And someone, if you're just doing that on your own, you don't have someone that's been able to go through and take a look at that on a case-by-case basis. And so we're carefully vetting our relationships and our individuals that we work with, our human connection experiences, our insight experiences, our VIP experiences with Luxury Gold. But one of the other areas for us specifically as insight is, we've always had smaller groups and more personal space. So our business class motor coach, this is something that's been in our DNA for a while. But those are the areas that we'll do. Expertly trained travel directors, more stringent protocol, 24-hour support, physical distancing, and then just a real realization of how these small groups will operate. And we want to make sure that when the guest is in that destination, we know that the guest is looking for that in-destination experience. And so we want to make sure that what we're promising, we deliver by creating those protocols. So these protocols are about well-being, and they're about making people feel more comfortable. But ultimately, people are going to invest, or people are going to come back to travel based on that in-destination experience. We're putting these in place so they're able to experience those destinations at a level that our well-traveled affluent guests are looking
No, that's great, and those, of course, go well for your two brands as well as Trafalgar and Kontiki and things like that. All of the Travel Corporation brands were guided vacations. So I found that a very interesting. It was really one of the first major tour operators slash or wholesalers to come out with guidelines like that. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of those in the cruise industry. We saw obviously a lot in hotels coming out, but within tours, we have not seen that kind of effort so far. Let's talk a little bit about, just get back to the booking aspect. I know you're handling rebookings, cancellations, refunds. First of all, what percentage of your customers, both on both the Insight and Luxury Gold, are really rebooking for a future date, and what percentage just say they want a refund?
Sure. Well, ironically, right before this call, myself and Guy Young, we're really taking a close look at those percentages. Right now, 92% of our guests last month. So if we look at April, we're taking a future travel credit or rebooking. So about 92% of our guests are opting for that future travel.
That's great. That's great. So, but you do provide refunds if somebody doesn't want to go, right?
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. I mean, we were vetting those out, and we're kind of doing that on a case-by-case basis. What we're doing is we're kind of working sequentially. So depending on when your departure date is, we're trying to work with those guests and those travel advisors first and kind of work with them. You know, it was, as you know, James, when we first started out, we started out slowly, and part of that was we were moving our call center in Cypress, California to be virtually based. So all of our call center team, all of our DSM teams were going from on the road or in an office space to kind of handling those. So we now kind of have that system down a little bit better, and we're surfacing those requests in a little bit more timely manner. Now, and again, we have to kind of keep that in perspective. It's not the way it used to be. We are on reduced hours, and that, but we have a better process now in place. So the first thing that we're doing is we're sending EDMs to our trade partner guests, letting them know if we're suspending a trip and letting them know what their options are. We're constantly updating our website, so that's always the best source for guests to know on what our policies are. We've enhanced our service by creating a contact form, and we have an active call out program, so people that do have issues, we're reaching out to them, trying to have those individual conversations here. And again, the most important thing is we're trying to contact them based on their original departure date. So for instance, if someone calls and says, hey, we've got a trip that's going out the first week in June, get on that right away. When we have guests that are saying, hey, we're doing a Christmas market, and we have some questions, again, it may be a little bit more of a time to go through there. But those folks that are escalating it, we do have a vetted process that we can work with them and kind of walk through their options.
Now, here's a big question. Are you seeing any bookings for later this year and for 2021?
Well, that's the $1 million question, and yes, we are. We're starting to see some bookings now. I have to put it in perspective compared to previous, but so the numbers are low, but we're definitely seeing bookings. A few success stories we have. We have a very talented director, Anthony Rich, who is very much into music. He created some Spotify lists, and we sent that out as an EDM, so people can kind of look at. We're looking to launch our domestic escapes programs, so we put together a Spotify list. Within a few hours, we had 11 bookings. Now that's a small number, but it's a good indication that we're seeing that. So. We are starting to see, specifically in the group space, we see that travel partners are looking at groups as an opportunity. We feel that guests are going to feel more comfortable traveling, specifically on small hosted programs. So both for 2021 and 2022, I kind of have a hard time getting that out of my mouth here, but we are starting to see those bookings come in.
Yeah, well,
numbers, but we're seeing a positive trend.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you whether you already have 2022 on sale at this point, and it sounds like you do have things available.
Right now we have it for groups. In about 12 weeks, we'll have a little less than that. We'll have all of our 2022. I had a really great conversation with Richard Launder, who runs our Destination America, and is the mind behind what we're offering. And so I saw yesterday, I spent a few hours looking at what we're doing for 2022, and I'm incredibly excited about it. It's a little bit of a shift from what we've done in the past, and I think that it's going to be well received by our guests.
Now let's talk a little bit about, you have two brands, and Insight Vacations, which be sort of high premium vacations, guided vacations, and then you have a brand you introduced a few years ago called Luxury Gold, which is sort of really higher end and exclusive experiences, some designed by your travel corporation chairman, Stanley Tolman.
Yes.
Getting your context. What's been the difference during this crisis in terms of the clients for both of those types of vacations?
Well, there's been kind of two different levels of that. Initially, kind of everyone reacted the same time when this started out in early March. But now that we're a little bit farther down the journey with these, we're seeing the luxury gold guests who tend to be a little bit more affluent, tend to be a little bit more experienced guests, seem to be more comfortable rebooking or taking a future travel credit. I think from their mindset, they don't see travel as something that's optional. They see that's as a right, and that's part of their lifestyle. So they've been more resilient in rebooking and more resilient in taking the future travel credit because they know that they'll utilize it. So, but not a huge difference here between the two brands as in the way that they've reacted to the situation.
No, that's good to hear. And now let's talk a little bit about how you're working with travel advisors at this time in terms of supporting them, in terms of training, education, incentives, I don't know, even commission to get them back to eventually booking Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold.
So there's two different things you're asking there. One is kind of how we're interacting with them and what we're doing with them. And two, kind of what we're doing from a reentry standpoint. I'll tell you, one of the things that's been very positive about this, which I have to be honest with you, I've been in the industry for a long time. This wasn't something that I was smart enough to anticipate, but we're getting huge numbers on our webinars and our Facebook Lives, like 15 to 20 times what we usually do. And not only are they going to these trainings or doing these virtual interactive experiences, but they're highly engaged. And so what we're finding, I have a very good director in Florida named Michelle Suter, and a woman in Texas named Kathleen Levy that have been conducting these. And so not only they're listening, but they're participating, they're asking questions. So the first thing is we're doing these virtual live interactive programs that have been very successful. Then from a global standpoint, we're relaunching our virtual trainings for both the Insight and the Luxury Gold brand, and those have been very well received. And as I mentioned before, the domestic we're launching 3 7-day domestic escape programs that we're just launching right now, but the appetite seems very strong with that. So so the first level of what we're doing is we're having these contacts, and we're doing a lot more virtually that seem to be exceptionally well received. Now, the second question that you asked is kind of what our plan is for reentry. I'll tell you that's a little bit more difficult because of the fluid situation. We know that we're going to have a lot of guests with these future travel credits. We know that there's going to be some discounting done by other vendors on what's happening. We're also going to have more costs as it relates to putting into effect some of these protocols and operating at a smaller level. So, we're looking at a lot of different options. Again, Melissa De Silva from Trafalgar and myself are trying to make sure that our reentry plans are similar, so it's easier for our guests to understand what the TTC Corporation is doing. But we're looking at a variety of options, from having a discounted deposit to having beneficial pay in full programs to try to align what used to be our early payment discount or early booking discount to make that easier for the guests to commit to taking an experience. But that's kind of, we'll have that out there to come, but there's definitely a lot of options. And also, it depends on where we can travel. It depends a lot on our relationships or what we can be doing with the airlines and how that will impact to determine when we're going to be having those. But we're definitely spend a lot of time on the reentry plan. So.
Well, indeed, you mentioned that you are trying to, introduce new programs and revise itineraries, maybe focusing a little bit more on domestic travel, at least initially. And I guess one of my next to last questions was how has this crisis affected your tour operations and the development of itineraries in the future? And you have probably already answered that, but just so I'm clear, you have had to revise the focus a little bit because everybody thinks local domestic's going to be first, followed by international, and maybe close in international, and then gradually we'll get back to whatever passes for normal. So am I correct in that?
Yeah. The only, and again, you and I have spoke on a personal level with some of these, and there's a lot of speculations. We're trying to have consistent conversations with our travel partners and our travel advisors, as well as our guests, to kind of see what their appetite is. We're conducting these consumer confidence surveys. But, from an operational standpoint, if you look to see in Europe, Greece was impacted very, very differently than Italy. And so your policies from one destination to another destination are really going to vary. And that's one of the advantages of the Travel Corp, is we do have a very strong infrastructure operationally. We've always over-delivered in destination. And it's for us to pre-vet these experiences and find out what the guests want. The one thing that we will say as we look forward and we look at it, we believe that affluent guest is looking for those ungoogleable type of experience. And, those type of experiences that they can make that authentic human connection in destination. They want that exclusive program that they wouldn't be able to do on their own. So we believe that we're going to attract those FIT guests. And so what our contracting teams are doing is, one, there's two levels of things that are happening, is that especially in the U.S. market, that guest is evolving on what they want just in general. But then also you overlay this with what's happening with COVID-19. We're really trying to make sure that we're delivering a product and destination that is going to resonate with that travel guests. We know experiential, we know exclusivity, we know authentic experiences. And we're looking at that differently. We don't think that people are going to want to be in St. Mark's Square at noon. However, they may want to go to St. Mark's Square as the sun sets and it's less populated. So we're trying to look at these experiences differently. They may not want to go to the Vatican when it's jam-packed, but to go and see the Bramante Staircase after hours, or that when the general public isn't there. We think that those type of experiences are going to be more key. Those intimate experiences in destination where you can create that human connection is what the guest is looking for. So it adjusts the way that we plan the trip and the cadence of when we see things at what time during the day.
No, and Grace, indeed, you were offering a lot of that before all this, and now that becomes even more important as people really want those private, more intimate experiences. And you mentioned also the different kinds of things you have to deal with different countries. I mean, most people think Greece is going to come back really soon, and I know you have programs there. But then I heard the other day that Italy, surprisingly, is emerging from this. I don't know exactly the timing of it, but we may see tourism back there for those who want to go certainly by the end of the year and maybe sooner.
And I think the important thing, just to say it, is you want to provide those travel advisors and those guest options, because as long as we can have a plan for them to experience that destination, we're able to be more nimble on where we put our resources and how we provide a consultation to the travel community on where they should go and where they're going to feel most comfortable going.
Now, my last question is: any other messages? Do you have any other message for our 100,000 travel advisors out there? What should they be doing right now to encourage their clients eventually to travel? What should they be doing with their businesses?
Well, a few things. One, we're incredibly humbled and appreciative of everyone's support over these last 8 weeks. These have been hard decisions. These decisions, as Stanley Tolman said, are about people. So I want to thank your audience here. Make me nervous, James. I didn't know there was 100,000 people that watched this. I would have brushed my teeth a little better, or combed my hair a little better before this.
Well, at least you have it over me. I haven't had a haircut in about 2 months.
But the two other things that I would encourage them to do is understand truth, and that as they're talking to their guests and they're talking to their agents and they're talking to their advisors, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And so understand what truth is, keep on top of how this is an evolving situation, so they have to understand truth and be able to do that. The other thing is it is going to be a new world. And I think the key to getting out of this is looking to see how you're going to present these experiences to these well-traveled, very savvy consumers. So what we've done in the past, whether that is through electronic messaging or through direct mail or one-to-one consultation, that's going to be different. And so we're trying to work with our advisors and try to provide tools for our advisors to see how they can source new guests and how they can talk about their core selling message. So thank you for everything. Concentrate on the truth. And third, look to see what the new world is going to look like and how they're going to fit into that.
Well, John, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us about Insight Vacations and Luxury Gold and your overall company's response to the crisis. I think you guys have some wonderful policies and procedures you're putting in, some great thoughts on what the future holds. And of course, no one knows, but we have to approximate exactly where we're heading, and we have to emerge. We have to get back to traveling. People will, and whether that's with a vaccine, without a vaccine, I think people long to get away and go somewhere. It just may be a little bit different in the future. Thank you so much again for taking the time to be with us.
Thanks, James. I look forward to having an adult beverage with you here in the near future on the circuit, and very much appreciate the opportunity from everyone from Insight Vacations, Luxury Gold, and the entire Travel Corporation.
Well, we'll get another Zoom call soon, and we'll just have a beer together. How about that?
Sounds good. That works for me. Take care. Thanks, James.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.